So again, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity. Really appreciate it. To kick things off, you guys, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Joel Anderson. I'm a field engagement manager at Concur. And really my job is to work with our salespeople in the field to engage with our partners. Concur is built on an ecosystem of roughly a little over 2,000 partners across the board, and that's everything from travel agencies to credit card companies, banks, resellers of technology, you name it. We have partners all over the place to help us distribute our product and make it more efficiently for all the users that are on it today. And so I was brought in today because I help manage some of those partnerships and wanted to just share with you some of the insights we have from our clients and give you a little sneak peek of what Concur does for our clients all over the world. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Concur, we are now SAP Concur. That's hard for me. You'll probably catch me on that one quite a bit throughout this presentation. But when I started at Concur, we were just Concur. A couple of years ago, SAP actually purchased Concur, and we rebranded as of the beginning of this year. We are now SAP Concur. But what Concur is, we've got over 40 million users around the world, 25,000 clients. Our SMN clients, meaning small to mid-sized national businesses, that's typically companies that have around 1,000 employees or less. But we're really seeing a huge uptick in our business in that smaller business segment. We're a global company, meaning we have offices all over the world. We have support locally, so if you're a company that's growing internationally, we can absolutely support you in that regard. Client satisfaction rate, I always like to point this out. It's rare that you see a satisfaction rate this high, but we do have over 95% satisfaction rate. Due to the fact that I mentioned earlier that SAP purchased us a couple of years ago, we have a heavy investment in R&D. So as far as being able to add to what we've already built today, bringing other partners in to help us add future functionality to the service, we've got the resources of SAP backing us to invest in that research and development to continue to grow and expand the platform, which is exciting. And then overall, we have over 40,000 clients in 150 countries at this point. The other thing I'll mention as I get going into the presentation, if you guys have any questions, anyone on the phone wants to jump in, definitely don't hesitate. Make this open forum. It's a lot more fun if people are engaging, and it's not just me blabbing on and on all day. So appreciate it. So one of the things I wanted to mention is just, Concur as a whole, we're a spend management company. That's what we like to think of ourselves as. The services that we offer, our goal is that we're helping organizations put a system in place that's going to help them see around the corner, avoid risk. In that, obviously, they're going to become more financially viable. And we want to be a partner with you. We want to partner strategically with you for long-term success. So as I talked about the research and development dollars that are going in, we're going to be, if we brought you on as a client, we're going to be reaching out, engaging with you, understanding what do you like, what do you not like, what do you need in your business, what are your business challenges that we could potentially add those R&D dollars, put those to work to create something that works even better for you as a business to be a true business partner for you. So I wanted to start with this just because, again, I mentioned that Concur is a spend management platform. In a typical SMN market, we see that the spend that comes from an organization, about 35% of it is usually payroll. Again, not every business is going to be these exact numbers, but this is on average. 35% is payroll. 10% of it comes from travel and expenses, so the travel and expenses your employees are incurring. And then everything else is the 55%, and that's what we would include in that what's paid from AP. So all the bills that come into your organization, whether it's rent, mortgage, electricity, bills from different vendors for the product you're producing. If you're a manufacturer, you get it. So overall, outside of payroll, we help you manage all of your outgoing spend. And for the payroll portion, I will mention, as I've talked about before, the ecosystem of partners. We do have a very close, long-standing relationship. Over 20 years, we've worked with ADP. However, if you have another payroll provider that you work with, we can certainly work with them as well. So obviously, you guys, we live in a mobile era. In the past, we went to the bank. I can't tell you the last time I went to the bank. I used to work at a bank for a long time. But people just don't go to the bank anymore. They do things mobily. They do it on their mobile device. We're trying to push towards that and give you the freedom to be able to not be stuck at your desk and not deal with paper anymore. So we're moving the Concur platform not only to your desktop on your computers, but also mobilely to your phone. You'll see that illustrated a lot in this presentation today. The same thing goes for receipts. People used to keep paper receipts. They used to submit paper expense reports. We're moving all of that again to the mobile device, allowing you to capture it on the go rather than having to be at your desk to create an expense report, capture a receipt rather you're no longer copying it on a copy machine, bringing it to someone's desk. Those days are gone, and obviously the goal is to make you more efficient. So some of this might sound familiar. Hopefully this desk doesn't look familiar to any of you, but if it does, we can certainly help. But these are just some of the things that we solve for our clients. So manual data entry, if you're struggling with that, insufficient controls, maybe you have expense reports, but they're often late, or people are missing receipts, or there's just no detail around why did they incur this expense. You're not alone. That's very common. Lack of visibility into cash flow is often a challenge if you're doing everything in a paper environment. And just too much paper in general. How do we get rid of paper? Those are all things that we can help you solve. We do run into the situation often with clients where they say, well, I don't know if I need to move. It's free right now to do it how I'm doing it today. And bottom line, it's not free the way you're doing it today. There was an independent research done by a company called the Aberdeen Group that studied the actual cost of processing an expense report manually and the cost of processing an invoice, an AP invoice, manually as well. Expense report is a little over $20 to manually process that. Invoices are over $25. From an expense report standpoint, we can cut that in half, potentially even less, depending on how many expense reports you're doing. Invoices are going to range anywhere from $1 to $5 an invoice when you automate, bringing that cost down dramatically. So what do SMB organizations care about? This is another study that was done by the Economist Intelligence Unit, and they looked at what are the leaders of these SMB organizations, what do they care about, what are their top 5 objectives, if you will. And obviously, a lot of these are going to ring home for you. If they don't, it might be kind of weird. But obviously, everyone's to increase revenue growth, improving operational efficiency, developing new products, attracting and retaining talent, and then entering new markets. These are all things that, with the help of what Concur services offer, we're able to help you accomplish. It's kind of a funny one I just want to touch on. Attracting and retaining talent is one that we do hear of a lot. If you have a sales organization, we often hear, the reason we're looking at your solution is because we have this top-notch salesperson that we want to recruit, but they refuse to use a paper environment and they request that they use Concur because that's what they've used in the past. I'm not making this up, it's crazy, but it happens more often than not. So something to just keep in mind. If you're bringing in new talent, whether it's on sales or accounting, people don't typically want to deal, especially millennials, which are coming more and more prevalent in the workforce, don't want to deal with manual entry and paper. They want it electronic and they want it faster. So what is Concur? Essentially, it's one platform from beginning to end. So we'll talk about invoice, we'll talk about travel, and we'll talk about expense. Invoice, again, meaning we're talking AP automation. Travel meaning the travel that your employees are booking today. If they're booking any travel, what expenses are incurred, and how do they get the cost of that travel into an expense report? Lastly, how do they capture those receipts and document the expenses that they incurred that they normally put on an expense report today? And we help with all of those. I want to start with invoice, and we'll dig into that a little bit. We'll start by going through just what it looks like as an invoice owner or a buyer. If you're an organization that has POs today or purchase orders, you can certainly create purchase orders within Concur, or if you have a purchase order system that you've already used today, we can implement that and integrate it into Concur. We'll go through a manager's perspective of our invoice platform, what it's like to approve an invoice and how they can do it on their desktop, on their phone. And then lastly, as an AP clerk, AP administrator, or maybe AP manager, what type of visibility do you have to these invoices? How do you validate it, make comments? Vendor payment options, we'll go through those as well. So, as I mentioned, from an invoice perspective, what we're doing, we're moving away from that manual process. We're getting rid of paper. We're going to start with a purchase requisition or a PO. If you have one, if that's relevant. If not, we simply capture the invoice. We're going to route it for approval, so the approval workflow. And then we'll show you how you can make payments through Concur. If you don't want to make payments through Concur, you can certainly make payments the way you do today, but it's an option. And then obviously it all integrates into your ERP, giving you total spend visibility for both invoice, travel, and expense, you'll find. So how do we get the invoices in? Concur has a technology that we use called OCR technology. You'll hear that from time to time. What OCR means is optical character recognition. So the way we use that is you have ways to get your invoices into the system. One will give you a unique email address, which you can tell your vendors, please send all my, if you have electronic invoices today, send these invoices to the new inbox, or if you guys get them today and you want to forward them to the inbox, you can. That's where the OCR technology is going to pick up, read that invoice, and scan it through. And I'll show you what it looks like in a second. Secondly, if you still have people that use fax machines, we have a fax line that they can use to get the invoices into the system. And lastly, mail. So you're going to get paper invoices, I presume, from time to time still. There's still some of those vendors that just do paper. And we can absolutely handle those as well. If you want to scan them and send them in via email, you can certainly do that, or we can take that off your plate. That's something that makes Concur a little different than some of the other AP automation services out there, is on top of the OCR technology that we have built, we also have a mailroom service, so a Concur capture service, if you will. And that is where we would give all your vendors a new address where they can ship their invoices for your organization. They actually come to our office here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And when we get those, we receive the invoices, we run them through the OCR technology ourselves, but then we have two people that will always validate every single invoice. So it's a dual validation process to make sure that all the data that's on that invoice is being accurately captured and entered into Concur, so when it's routed for approval to the appropriate person in the organization, they can count on that data being completely accurate. They don't have to wonder if it was actually captured and coded properly. Any questions on this so far? I know I'm talking fast.
Joel, this is Sabrina. I do have the lines muted so we don't get any background noise, but if anybody has any questions, they can leave that in the conversation window and I'll definitely pass them along, and at the end I can open up all the lines. But yeah, if you want to just leave your questions in that conversation window, I'm happy to pass those to you, Joel.
Awesome. Thanks, Sabrina. So that's how we get the invoices in. Give you a little sneak peek. So this would be the desktop platform of the Concur invoice tool. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a copy of an invoice. So that's the electronically captured invoice that we got into the system. And on the left-hand side of the screen is all the data that we've pulled off of it. So that OCR technology that I talked about before, it's actually pulling off your vendor info, your invoice number, your date. It's coding it based off of the rules we write when we set the system up with you. What you want to code it to based off of your general ledger details. It's going to pull off invoice numbers, totals, taxes, shipping. It's also going to pull off all the line items for you. That's going to come in handy if you are doing purchase orders and you need to match those line items to a purchase order to make sure, hey, I ordered 10 ergonomic office chairs, but I only got 8. We'll get into that in a second here. Unit prices, details, all that's pulled in. What this means to you, if you're an AP, and you're dealing with these manually, today you're probably typing all this into your ERP. You no longer need to type any of this stuff. It's already going to be pulled into Concur, and Concur is going to feed it into your ERP for you, which is the beauty of technology. Lastly, it's going to route it for approval. We let you set this up, and we set up the system for you. We let you set this up how you want. So if you have particular invoices that are always going to be routed to a particular person or department, we can do it that way. There's always an override option where you can choose to approve it and send it to someone else or just automatically send it to someone else. But the goal is to automate as much as possible and get it to the right person from the start. So from an invoice workflow standpoint, pretty standard. Invoice is captured. It's routed for a manager for approval or potentially to accounting for approval, and then accounting processes and pays the way they choose. Concur is going to allow you to make that vendor payment from Concur, and you can choose the terms on which you want to pay. If you want to pay outside of Concur and do it on your own, again, you're more than welcome to do that. And from there, when you do that, it's going to update your ERP, and it's going to give you reporting that you can go back to analyze that data and obviously get some more real-time actionable data than you have in a current manual environment. The other option would be, and it's totally configurable, is there are a lot of cases where we talk to organizations and they want to put in different dollar thresholds. If I have an invoice over $1,000, I definitely need to go to my CFO or my controller, or maybe they just have additional approvers if it goes to maybe distributed to different cost codes or departments. We have the ability to route it like exactly how you want it. Totally up to you and entirely customizable. The one thing I did want to bring up, and I mentioned it on the last slide, but just at the bottom here, I highlighted the distribute button. There are plenty of cases where you get an invoice in, and you want to distribute those costs to maybe multiple GL codes and multiple departments. We absolutely can accommodate for that. There's the distribute button that I've circled at the bottom. And you can distribute the cost of an invoice based off a dollar threshold or percentage, entirely up to you, and you can split it as many ways as you wish. Another thing that a lot of clients use is just there's a favorites function within this distribution. So if you have an invoice that you always get from, I'm just going to use Initech as an example. Initech's the vendor that you get, and you know it always is split between marketing and sales. You could save a distribution as a favorite for split for marketing and sales for Initech. Again, it's always customizable when you get it in, but again, the goal is to make it as streamlined and easy as possible for you. The other part I mentioned earlier, mobile, but the mobile app that we use for travel, expense, invoice, every feature functionality that I will be showing you today is all available on your mobile device. We live on our mobile devices these days. A lot of you know probably that a lot of times the decision makers, the people that are approving invoices, the people that are approving expense reports are on the go. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a client that struggles with getting invoices approved because it's sitting on someone's desk and that person is traveling for work that week, or they're on vacation and they can't get it approved, and they can't get their bills paid on time, or they can't get their expense reports done on time. This is going to allow you to avoid that in the future. So as you can see on the left, you can see any invoices you need to approve. There's a check mark with a number 1 next to it. You have one invoice you need to approve. That invoice is for office equipment. It's highlighted there. You can make any comments you want on that invoice. You could send it back to the person that sent it to you or to accounting. You can simply approve by clicking the approve button in the lower right-hand corner. You can see those distributions. We talked about distributing costs to different departments. You can certainly do that from your phone, as well as see the whole invoice. So if you're wondering what the heck is this office equipment for $3,000 for, you can pull up the invoice directly from your phone. The other thing, so we mentioned, and I hinted at this earlier, but purchase orders. If you're an organization that uses purchase orders, again, you can feed those POs into Concur, and we are going to use those to look for any discrepancies. If you want to use Concur's purchase order system, you can do that as well. The value of that is that in a manual environment today, you're probably taking that purchase order, you're taking that invoice that you just received, and if you're doing the receipt of goods as well, so a three-way match, you're probably looking at all three of them side by side to see, did I really get what I paid for? Did I pay the right amount versus what I ordered? And Concur takes all that manual work out of it for you. So you'll see at the top of the screen there, the line item unit price didn't match what was on the purchase order. So it's pointing it out to you right away. Technology is figuring it out rather than you having to set all three aside and figure out what matches and what doesn't. I can tell you the insight that we have from our clients that use the service today. We've got about 4,500 clients that use our invoice service today. And right now, about 87% of PO-based invoices properly match and go right through for approval. There's nothing that needs to be done to them, which is great because that means that, you know, the 87%, so the 13% left over are the only ones that your AP team wants to probably focus their time on because they're going to figure out, okay, what was the discrepancy and how do we have to go fix it? Do we want to get a new invoice or do we want to work with the vendor to figure out what to short pay them? You name it, it's totally up to you what you want to do, but it's giving you that time back in the day to focus just on the 13% rather than the 87 that already matched that you would have spent time looking at. Just highlighted that there. The other thing too is you'll notice, I'm going to go back one screen, so you'll see the matching summary with the little exclamation point on there. If you hit that tab, it brings you to this page, and again, it details out exactly what was on that purchase order and what was on the actual invoice and highlights the variance. So you ordered 15, but you were invoiced for 30. What do we need to do? That's obviously something that your AP not, they have a query that they can simply search. This comes in extremely handy when, for a lot of you, if you're in accounting, you may have just got done with audits and getting an audit trail, finding these invoices, finding out who touched what, when. Everything will be completely searchable and queryable, is that a word? In the Concur platform. Secondly, if you're trying to obviously work through all of your open invoices that need to be paid, this is the feature you'll see a lot, is just the query. You're probably going to query and look for invoices ready for processing, or invoices request pending review, deals that you need, invoices you need to work through. It's a quick way to start your day and figure out how you work to zero to make sure your work is done. So invoices have been processed, they've been captured, they've been processed, approved, now you're ready to be paid. As I mentioned before, we do give you the ability to pay within Concur. Concur will actually cut an electronic check, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, mail it to your vendor on the terms that you request. It's an electronic check. We'll actually accommodate for 2 signatures if you want. Your company logo will be on the check. Our book price on that is $1 a check. So when we're looking at cost savings for an organization, the studies have shown that it costs an organization roughly $7 to cut a check manually through a regular AP process. We can do it for $1, sometimes less, just depending on how many checks you're cutting. But there's a definite hard dollar cost savings there if you're cutting checks. ACH, we have the ability to link up with your bank account and pay your invoices via ACH for you as well on the terms that you prefer. And then lastly, I know the title of this webinar was how to turn your cost center into a profit center. So card voucher, one-time use cards, credit cards, this is probably the hottest topic that we have right now with all of the CFOs, controllers, executive teams that we talk to when they want to look at automating AP. Because not only are they looking to go paperless, but they're looking for how do we manage our working capital more effectively, one. Two, are there other ways where we could leverage a card program? So we have a very close relationship and have for a long time with American Express. If you don't use American Express, we certainly work with a lot of other credit card programs out there, and we do have other pay partners as well from a virtual card standpoint. However, when you're paying with a virtual card, for people that don't know about virtual cards on the phone, you would allow us to say, let's use American Express virtual card. You can drop down for this particular invoice, pay with American Express virtual card. And American Express would facilitate that payment for you with a single-use card number that's only valid for that invoice, for that dollar amount. Once it's used, it's no longer existing, which is obviously extremely secure. And the benefit of that is it's expensive to cut checks. You don't get any benefit back from the ACH, but now, say you put it on a corporate card, you have 30 to 45 days to float where you can manage your capital more effectively, or you may be not having to pay that bill right away. Secondly, you're probably going to get back at least a minimum of 1%. We have pay partners, depending on how much you're spending, can give you as much as 1.5 to 1.7% back on whatever you're spending through that card program. So I would say 98% of the time when we have clients that are evaluating automating AP and they look at moving some of their invoice spends to a card program, the return that they get from that card program will easily pay for the Concur service and then some, hence the reason turning your AP department from a cost center into a profit center. One last thing I want to mention on Invoice before I move on is just the supplier portal. If you're an organization that struggles with paying invoices on time, or you have vendors that are calling you on a regular basis saying, hey, did you get my invoice? When can I expect to get paid? We offer a supplier portal. So if you have those pesky vendors that actually want to get paid, crazy concept, you can set them up with secure access to our supplier portal, which will allow them to log into Concur and only see the invoices that they sent you. So they can see every invoice they sent you, whether or not it's been processed, paid. If you paid with a check, it would show the check number, all the details, so they're no longer calling your AP team asking about, did you get my invoice and when am I going to get paid? It's entirely secure, and again, it's up to you whether or not you want to give your vendors access to it, but it's on a vendor-by-vendor basis. Lastly, all of this would be kind of a moot point if you didn't have the analytics behind it. Sometimes I think I probably should have started with analytics, but you can't manage what you can't measure. So Concur gives you, and we've actually really expanded our reporting in the last year here. But we're going to give you easy-to-use dashboards that are going to show you how much are you paying every month, who are your top vendors, how fast are you paying your vendors. All the data that you need. Accruals is a huge one that we often see in a manual environment. You don't know what's sitting on someone's desk. You could have an invoice for $200,000, but if no one's actually approved it and entered it into your ERP, you have no idea what's out there. Now you can actually accrue for it because you'll have a pending invoice, whether it's approved or not, that shows up in a report within Concur the second it gets captured by the OCR technology, which is fantastic. So that's what I wanted to cover from an invoice standpoint. I'm going to kick into travel here. I'll show you what it looks like to book a trip with Concur, how the travel system works, and then we'll move into expense. So from a traveling standpoint, obviously we're trying to make it as easy as possible to book a flight, more importantly within your company's guidelines. We're providing e-receipts for your airfare, your car rental, your hotel. And importantly, in this day and time, unfortunately, you hate to bring it up, but whether it's an earthquake or a hurricane or a terror attack, you have a duty of care that you're responsible for, and it's taking care of your employees and knowing where they are at all times. And that's something that Concur can help you with, obviously, by understanding where your people are traveling. The benefit of this is your employees still have the freedom to book, and we make it as easy as possible, but it's keeping it within your company's policy and it's keeping them compliant. We have a very broad travel content. I want to explain a little bit, though, about the difference between Concur and a travel agency, because Concur is not a travel agency. We use travel agencies. I like to think of, I'm going to put this in a different analogy, but think of Concur as an iPhone. You have a choice you're going to use an iPhone regardless, but you want a service behind it that's going to charge that iPhone and give you the data and give you the ability to make a call on that iPhone. The AT&Ts or the Verizons of the world would be the travel management companies. So if you have a TMC or a travel management company that you work with today, we work with over 300 of them across the country, pretty much every major TMC we work with, but their data is the data that's feeding into Concur. Concur's booking tool is what's going to filter out based off of the policies we set up with you when you set up the tool to determine how much do you want your employees to be spending, are there preferred vendors, airlines, things of that sort. So that's what's going to feed it in. So this is what it looks like, just the main page of the platform. On the left-hand side of the screen is the travel booking tool. And it's going to be very similar to what you see today if your employees are using Expedia or Kayak or any of the basic consumer sites. You're going to have the ability to search for your travel, so airfare. In this flight, we're going from Seattle to LAX. We're going to do a car, so we're going to pick up a car while we're on the way, and we're also going to pick up a hotel to stay at. And you'll notice at the bottom there, it also gives you the ability to choose, if you have a certain destination. So in our case, at Concur, we have all of our company locations entered in there. So if I start to type in Seattle, because that's where our headquarters are, Seattle's going to automatically populate up to the Seattle headquarters if that's where I want to stay. And I can say I want to stay within 3 miles of it, or 5 miles in this case. In this case, it's searching the Los Angeles Convention Center, and it's going to give you options to within 5 miles of the convention center, which is pretty cool. So once you do that, again, very similar to the consumer sites out there, you're going to see all the different options across the top. Again, we mentioned before the different policies that you want to put in place. If you have preferred vendors, for us at Concur, we're based out of Seattle, so Alaska Airlines is the most preferred for us. Delta is preferred, United is preferred. So it's going to show those preferred ones first, but again, it's going to give you all the options. Is there a question there? Sorry. At the bottom, you'll see all the different options. The one thing I want to point out is that there are some exclamation points in the triangles there. What those are telling you is that there's an exception. You can certainly choose that flight. It's not going to stop you from doing it, but you need to justify why you're doing it. Again, these are settings that we'll be able to configure for you when we get the tool set up for you. But it's going to tell you, hey, if you want to choose this flight, the fare is greater than or equal to 20% to the local least cost. I can't talk today. It's within 20% of the most logical airfare. Give us a reason as to why you want to do it before you book it. That way your manager knows why you booked this $400 flight when there's a $150 flight. And that's also going to mark it as an exception. So later on when we get into reporting, if you wanted to run a report to see who has the most exceptions, who keeps booking all these flights that are outside of policy, you can pull a report to see who's doing that and why. And then that's maybe something you want to change your policy, or maybe you want to tighten the reins on that person that tends to break the rules. The other thing I want to mention is I said e-receipts earlier. So e-receipts, we have a huge group of partners out there, whether it's Delta, Hilton, Marriott, you name it, that have enrolled and are partners of ours in our e-receipt program. You'll see that it's pointed out in this one that this Holiday Inn has e-receipts. Most of these have e-receipts available, meaning when you book, you don't have to worry about getting your folio at the end of your stay, saving it, scanning it, uploading it, and then itemizing everything on an expense report. You're going to get an e-receipt that goes right into your Concur platform that's going to show up as an available expense to put into an expense report. It's going to look just like this. You see everything itemized on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you'll see it as an available expense. And it says this itemized entry has sub-entries with one or more exceptions, meaning that there's some issues with those with the itemization. The value is you're no longer typing this in. I can tell you from personal experience, I came from a company that didn't have Concur. I was a salesperson, and I literally had to spend half a day every Friday trying to figure out how to get all this stuff into the expense reporting tool, and it was the biggest waste of my time in the world, and I should have been out finding more business. Instead, I was at my house trying to figure out how to get my hotel receipts itemized. So huge time savings for your employees. I mentioned e-receipts before. We have 100% commercial airline participation, so anything that you're booking with any of the commercial airlines out there, those e-receipts are going to flow right into your employees' expense report, so they're no longer going to have to track down a receipt. It'll just be there for them. And then you see a list of, this isn't even all of them, but it's a lot of the major ones that we have e-receipts enabled for today. So you've gone through, you've booked everything, you're ready to go. You would simply hit purchase ticket, as you see at the bottom of the screen. And from there, your ticket's purchased, you're ready to go. Another value of what Concur offers from a travel standpoint is that we offer an app called TripIt. TripIt is basically a travel concierge tool, I would call it. So it's going to help you all the way through. Rather than having a folder with or a briefcase with all of your itineraries and where you're going and what's your confirmation number, it's all held within TripIt. When you book it within Concur, it flows to TripIt, and it helps you understand, okay, I'm within 24 hours, I can check into my flight. Oh, my gate just changed. It's going to tell you the gate changes. It's going to give you a ton of cool data. In this case, it's showing you a map of the terminal where you're landing, where you're picking up your luggage, where you're going. If you want to look up the directions to your hotel, it's going to give you all those details from the app for all of your travel itinerary that's built through Concur. Lastly, we often get the question from particularly salespeople, yeah, but I want to get my rewards. Now my company, I'm not going to get my rewards, I'm not going to get my points. You absolutely will get your points. That is not a challenge at all within Concur. Each traveler or each employee can set up a profile with all of their frequent flyer programs, any sort of preferred traveler program, whether it's hotels, airlines, rental cars. They can store those in here, automatically default. So if I'm flying Delta, my Delta rewards number is going to link it right to that trip that I just booked. So you know they're not missing out on that. Secondly, from a payment method standpoint, if you have a corporate card program today and you want to feed that into Concur and set it up so it's defaulted, you can certainly do that. You'll see there's a drop down there. So this is an Amex corporate card mine's defaulted to, but if they want to drop down and enter their own credit card in and pay on their own, they can certainly do that as well. We give you the option. So that's traveling in a nutshell. Obviously, when you're traveling, however, you're going to have expenses that you incur. And so how do you capture those receipts? How do you get them on an expense report? We're automating all that and doing that, making that easier for your employees, your travelers. And the goal is obviously giving you visibility and giving them time back in their day to do the more important details of their job. All while being compliant, of course. So one platform from beginning to end, everything we're seeing here, you're going to see that message over and over today, is just that travel, expense, invoice, it's all on the same web-based platform that you log into, and it's rule-specific driven. So if you want someone to have access to one piece of it and not the other, you can certainly do that. So in this case, expense, it's going to be, we're going to talk through the expense filer, how they capture receipts, create an expense report. From a manager's perspective, how do you approve those expense reports today? If you're in a manual environment, are you looking at them on a spreadsheet? How does that look in Concur? And then lastly, from an AP, finance, admin perspective, how are they reimbursing the employees? How are they getting that visibility into the data that they're submitting? So the goal at the end of the day is that we're trying to get these expense reports to write themselves, to give you as much time back as possible. And really, it kind of does that. You'll see it as we walk through. It's pretty cool. But why are companies automating expense reporting? Because it's a pain in the butt, one. But 55% of them can see that it's the lower cost of expense report transaction when you automate. So the costs are lower. Compliance is better, number two there. So 44% say that compliance is better when you have an end-to-end travel and expense solution. And then 53% just want to do it because migrating off the paper process is the top priority for them. I'm assuming that if you're on this holiday, one of those three might get home for you. And who doesn't want to be, a more efficient organization? So those are all done by independent research studies as well. This is just a funny, I actually have a video for it. I'm not going to play the video today, but if any of you are Seinfeld fans, you've seen the episode with George and where he loses all of his receipts. Our goal is like, let's not have your employees walking around with the George Costanza wallet where they have to go to the chiropractor because they got some of the receipts in their wallet and they can't manage anything. Not only is it hard on them, their back, but it's hard on you. I'm pain in the butt to dig through receipts when you're trying to complete someone's expense report. So let's look at how we capture those receipts. We have a couple different options. Obviously, the mobile, again, is going to come up. We can capture them on our mobile device through the Concur app. You can email them. So if you have a receipt that gets emailed to you and you want to get it in the platform, you can just send it to receipt@concur.com. We have the e-receipt option that we talked about before. If you have a paper receipt, you, for some reason can't take a picture of it with your phone, you can always scan it and upload it to the system. And lastly, for those people that still have fax machines, you can certainly fax it in as well. But the goal is obviously to create those receipts on the go. So you're not being me in my old job sitting at my house on a Friday trying to figure out where my receipts are and putting everything in. As you're on the go, if I'm going out for lunch, I'm going to snap a photo of that receipt. It's going to go right to my expense report and move on with my day. So it's all ready to go and I'm ready to submit my expense report. One thing, again, a lot of people have questions about Concur's mobile functionality, the app itself. I would say compare it to any of them out there. We've got plenty of people out there try to automate expense reports. I don't think any of them do it as well as Concur does, and the ratings say it for themselves. If you go onto the App Store, this was done January 29th, we have over 300,000 reviews at 4.7 stars, which is higher than any of our competitors. The most any other competitor has like 150 or something like that, and the one that has the most reviews has 2.8 stars. I think it goes to say that Concur knows what they're doing when it comes to a mobile platform and making it as easy to use as possible for your end users. So you'll see on the left-hand side is the Concur logo, is the app. When you click on it, it opens it up. You can see that you have your trips, your expenses, your expense reports, approvals if you're an approver approving expense reports. If you do POs, you can submit purchase requests directly from your mobile app. And on the right-hand side of the screen illustrates that again. The one thing I want to point out here is that you'll see a little picture of a camera that says expenses on the right-hand side. That is the tool that we use to capture those receipts. So if I'm out at a restaurant and I want to expense that dinner that I just had with my clients, I'm going to hit that expenses button. It's going to pull up a camera. You're going to snap a picture of that receipt. And using the same technology that I started with when we talked about AP automation, the optical character recognition technology is going to read that receipt. It's going to capture the date, the city, the total, the tax, all that, and it's going to read it. So it's going to say it's analyzing this receipt in less than a minute. It's analyzed everything on that receipt. It's coded it to a dinner based off of the details of the receipt. If you wanted to change that, you certainly can, but it's going to do its best to guess at what this receipt was for. So in this case, it's coding it to dinner. $24. It's with the steakhouse, or smokehouse, excuse me, on November 6th. If you want to move it to, if you're all good with that, and you want to move it to report, you just hit move to report in the bottom right-hand corner. You can drill into it and see all the details of it as well. So if you wanted to change that to the type is something else, you can certainly do that. And then if you like it, move it to a report. You'll see now on this expense report, you've got it on the Will Thomas April 17th report. He's got it there. He's got his car miles. He's got a taxi. And he's ready to go. If he wants to submit it or if he wants to keep adding things to it, he certainly can as well. The other thing you may have saw on that app that I showed you earlier was mileage. So Concur Drive is a solution that we added to the mobile functionality this last year. If you have employees that are submitting mileage today, I'll tell you that I came from our client sales department at Concur. So I worked with existing clients, understanding what type of things that they have in the organization, how could we potentially help them save money. And mileage is a huge area of cost savings. Typically, that's the number one area, I'm not going to call it fraud, but it's the number one area of embellishment, if you will. When someone moves from let their employees just put down the numbers of miles that they drove this month to a GPS tracking mileage program, we're seeing a cost savings of 30 to 35% on your mileage. So if you're a company out there that has a lot of mileage and you're not tracking via GPS, I would highly encourage it. That could be a huge area of cost savings for you. And Concur can help you do that. So again, that same mobile app, you'll see in the lower right-hand corner, there's a mileage button that they can hit. And when they're ready to take a trip for work that they want to expense, they simply hit start. They do have an option to enter mileage manually if they want. If they forgot to hit it, they need to go back and do it after the fact. They can enter in the start and end points, and Google Maps will do it for them. We have that integrated. Otherwise, there is a setting where they can set it to turn on and off throughout their workday. If they know they're always traveling every morning at 8 a.m. and they're always on the road all day, it can map out their entire travel throughout the whole day via GPS, which is pretty cool. If you hit that, mileage capture started, and when your route is complete, it's going to say your route is complete, hit OK. It's going to show you exactly where that person drove. So again, in the case where, hey, I might have a 7-mile commute in an old school fashion, I'm going to be like, yeah, I had some mileage I drove to and from. It was about 10 miles. Well, if you're doing that every day of the week, the 3-mile variance adds up and can cost your organization a lot of money. So that's hopefully where you see the savings there. It goes right to the expense report, and that brings me to the other way that people travel. So we talked about planes, we talked about mileage, but again, coming from my experience working with existing clients, taxi was a huge one. We have a partnership with Uber. We are fully integrated with Uber. You can set up a Concur profile within Uber. So in my case, I can choose whether I want to call an Uber on my corporate account or on my personal account. If it's for work, I'm going to hit corporate, I'm going to hit Uber, and that trip is automatically going to flow directly to my expense report. I don't have to save a receipt. Good to go, but the savings there, again, was over 30%, and depending on the area where your employees are, up to 40% savings when booking on Uber versus booking versus like taxi receipts. So that's comparing real data that's coming in from our clients today, taxi receipts versus Uber receipts. There's a huge savings there. So again, request, travel, expense, invoice. If you have the full platform, everything will be on this main page as you see highlighted in the upper right left-hand corner. If they go into the expense report, so again, we saw it on the mobile device, but this is on the desktop. You'll have the same thing on your desktop. You'll be able to see your expense reports. All your expenses are on the left-hand side. There are available expenses, so receipts that maybe you've entered in from expenses, or there's a card charge there for a Saki house in Seattle. That's there. If you want to put that on the report, you simply just drag it and drop it into your expense report, or you can click the box and hit move. But it makes it very simple for you to bring that over. Additionally, you see highlighted in red, there's a field saying that there's something missing. We don't have a business purpose. So again, if you're the person that's managing these expenses and you're getting the receipts and they're missing details, this will keep you from having to go back to your employees saying, hey, I need to know what this meal was for. I need to know what this hotel stay was for. You have the ability to make those requirements so they can't submit it until everything is in there. Additionally, I want to just point out, in this case, you can click on the hotel. You see on the left-hand side, it itemized everything out for them with the copy of that e-receipt, so they can see the full e-receipt. They can see everything detailed out. And it even took out, in this case, we had a policy where the company was not paying for the mini bar or the movie. If they're integral, they were there, so it took those out, as you'll see highlighted. So that's why there's a difference, $2,700 versus $2,699, because the company's not going to pay for that stuff. But if you want to, you're more than welcome to. The other thing, often when we have people that are putting in dinners and meals, they want to put attendees in. We absolutely have the ability to do that too. You can enter as many people as you want. You can have a favorites group, so if you know you always have a dinner with a certain client and you want to have those clients' names defaulted in there, you can do that to make it easy to add your attendees to your dinners. Obviously, that comes in really handy if you're in pharma, med device industry where you need to track all those people. From a cost standpoint, we can do that for you. Just highlighting the attendees again there. And then the other thing too, if you wanted to add an individual expense, you'll see on the right-hand side, all the different expense types are pulled in from your GL, customizable. So if you have other random expenses that you want to create on your own, you can do that on the right-hand side. You just start by clicking on internet or lunch or dinner or what have you to create your own expense line item, which we did there. Once everything's good, you like that expense report on the left-hand side, you just hit submit report. Similar to how we saw invoices earlier, employee's going to submit it, it's going to flow to a manager for approval, manager's going to approve it, or maybe it just goes to your AP team, and they're going to approve it and process and pay it. If you wanted to put additional workflows in there, you certainly can. We have the ability to do that. Some people, again, will put in dollar thresholds, or if there's a certain GL line they need to move it to a different department for approval, you can do that. And then lastly, from there, you have the ability to reimburse employees, if it's cash out-of-pocket type of reimbursements. If you want to send it to your payroll, if it comes out of payroll, you can do that. If you work with ADP, you can do that. It updates your ERP, so the integration that we build out with our partners to get your ERPs upgraded or updated, all the data flows to your ERP, and then lastly, you can have all the data to analyze to figure out where you're spending, how much you're spending, why you're spending, and maybe who are your biggest offenders, so how you can find cost savings. If you choose, if you're not paying through payroll and you want to reimburse those employees faster, Concur does give you the ability. We have a product called Expense Pay, which allows you to, once you submitted that report, you verified and fully approved it. That authorizes us to pay via ACH. You set up your bank account. All of your employees that want to get paid that way would have their bank account info entered into Concur, and it would send an ACH from your account to their account, as well as if you're paying corporate cards, we can do that too. So if you want us to go further and make those payments for you, we absolutely can. If not, feel free to do it on your own. Integration is always going to be a question. When we're talking about all of this data that's flowing into Concur, how do you get it out of Concur? How do you get it into the ERP I use today? Obviously, a lot of you are on this call because you work with a great reseller that works with, they're certified by Microsoft. So you're probably using some form of Microsoft. And we absolutely integrate to Microsoft. We have connectors for it. Your partner on the phone can help you with that as well. But there are, in my experience here in the last 3.5 years, I've never run into a circumstance where we weren't able to get the data into the ERP that our client is using. Just a matter of how do you want to get it in there. So again, we have options on demand, where it's a simple flat file. You can upload it into your ERP, export it from Concur, upload it in the ERP. FTP is an option if you want to schedule that delivery. We have pre-built connectors, many of them for the different Microsoft products out there. And if you have a more one-off ERP or you want to connect to other systems that we don't have any sort of pre-built connector to, we do have open API. We have an API library, so if you wanted to build out something using some more technical support, we certainly can have something built as well. Analytics standpoint. So I mentioned it before a little bit in some of the slides with expense and invoice, but analytics are huge. If you have all this data, how are you going to use it? So we have a little analytics tab at the top. Some of them will say reporting, some of these screenshots, but reporting is huge for us. It's a big reason why people use Concur versus the competition. It's the easy reporting and the robust reporting that we have. So I mentioned earlier accruals, whether it's expenses or invoices. If you don't know what's out there, you don't know what to do. Where now that you've actually captured everything electronically, it's in the system. You know that there's a pending charge. It just hasn't been submitted on expense report. So you can actually run a true accrual report. We make it in dashboard form to make it very easy for you to read. If you wanted to have different department managers set up to see different profiles, they can certainly do that. But again, ease of use is key for us. So in this case, we have different, you can view it as a finance administrator or a manager. We can set up the different profiles to see exactly what you want to see. The one thing I will mention is I did a lot of reporting, and I did this before with my clients as a client sales rep. And a big one that we saw was, again, accruals, but top spenders. And I'll share a quick story just because I think it's important. Top spenders is a key one because so many small businesses think they know their employees. They think they trust their employees. And I'm not telling you that you have bad employees, but I'm saying that you just don't know until you have the analytics behind it to really monitor it. And I was on a call with the CFO, and his top spender happened to be the admin for their CEO. And he's like, yeah, you know what, it makes sense that she's the top spender. She buys a lot of stuff, authorized by the CFO. She's out on maternity leave right now anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. And as we went through the conversation, we were looking at all the other reports. He's like, man, you know what, can we look at her data again? And so, again, easy, simple drill down functionality. We drilled down into this admin's report, and the bulk of her costs were actually coming from charge to motherhood maternity, which is kind of wild. It blew his mind, but Colin did really quick. I'm assuming she probably didn't come back from maternity leave because she's spending the company's money on her own kids' clothes. But again, that was a small company. I think they had like 50 employees. They thought they could trust her, but you just never know unless you actually are looking at the details. And in their case, someone obviously wasn't looking at the expense report, and they didn't have the details before to see who was spending the most, which is obviously her. So very important that you're using the analytics behind it. You can see the top credit card transactions. Unassigned credit card transaction report is a really popular one. If you have company cards out there and you want to know why are these charges not on a report, you have a report that you can go and use. To find those, as far as just reconciling credit cards as well, we have a credit card reconciliation report that helps you with that. Makes it a lot easier. Budget is another thing I want to talk about. Obviously, as small businesses try to grow into large businesses, staying on budget is key. Crazy enough, I do talk to some clients that are like, no, we don't really have a budget. You might want to consider putting one in place. Concur can certainly help you with that with the new tool that we rolled out this spring called Concur Budget, where we now allow you to track budgets for projects, for individuals, for departments, all from the desktop as well as from your mobile phone. So as you're submitting an expense report, I'm going to submit this report, and I can see that I have a pending expense report that I can now go up to my reporting and see that, okay, this is my budget. I have a report that's pending for $2,600. I spent $4,000, and I've got $1,800 remaining. So it's real time. The second I hit submit, it's pending. It's going to show up tracking against my budget for the year or the quarter, however you set up the budget controls. The same thing if you have multiple budgets. So in this case, this person, Crystal, has a shared budget, so she has a budget likely for her team as well as maybe for an entire group. She can track all of those within Concur. She can get an overview of her entire budget. And then it's going to give her some nice just breakdown of where she's spending, the different categories, what makes up that budget, and the details of who is it being submitted by. In this case, Eliza Christensen's got a lot of that budget so far. No one else does for the particular project. But crucial details to help you manage and stay on track with your budgets. I can speak firsthand. We've blown budgets early and often in past companies that I've worked for, and it makes it tough when you get to Q4 and it's the most important time of the year to try to drive business and you don't have any budget because you blew through it earlier in the year. Again, getting back to mobile, everything is going to be available on your mobile device. So if you have our budget services, you see budgets at the bottom. You can tap into your budget, see where you're at. So if you're on the road and you're like, man, I really need to book this next trip to go see this client, I don't know if it's in the budget. You can pull up your budget to see where you're at, what you have remaining, and whether or not this is a smart decision for you and your organization before you decide to book that trip to go see that next client or make that next purchase. Also, the details, some of those dashboards I talked about earlier in the analytics will show up on your mobile device. If you have that budgeting tool, the analytics behind it will show up, which is cool if you're, again, an executive that's on the go. All of this is entirely secure on the platform that we have. We take our security extremely seriously because we are a global company. It's entirely IRS compliant. And in fact, one thing I'd like to point out is that the IRS is a client of Concur. So I can assure you that if the IRS is going to be a client of Concur, the security is probably good enough for any of the other companies that are looking to bring us on as a solution to help them run their business. So the last thing I want to just highlight you guys is expertise that won't grow you. So often I will talk to clients that started with another solution, or they started with a homegrown solution and they've outgrown it. Doesn't really scale for the business. Now we added a location in Canada, or there's something that's causing them to not be able to use the solution they have today. We talked about it when we started this call, but the R&D dollars that we've put in to continue to grow our platform and to continue to scale is there for a reason. So you guys can't outgrow Concur. Concur wants to grow with you and be a partner with you for your entire life as a business. So food for thought there. With that being said, that's all I have for today. I'll open it up for questions. Did anything come in on the web? On Skype, I should say.
Nope, I don't have any questions here, but I'll go ahead and open up the phone lines if anybody has any. And if you're dialed in on the phone, you can go ahead and hit *6, and that should unmute yourself as well.
Was I that thorough?
You did a good job, Joel. You hit a lot of points.
That's the goal.
So all of our customers here, Joel, have Microsoft Dynamics GP, and you said this does integrate directly with that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And if there are folks that have add-on products like Key to Act, are you familiar with that add-on product?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Does that integrate directly with your solution as well?
I know that people have done it, yes. The details of how you want it to integrate we can certainly have on a one-off basis conversation, but yes, we can work with it. It's just a matter of how you want it to work and how you want it to talk back and forth.
Okay.
Hey Sabrina, this is Corey. I missed a lot of the beginning, but did they go over integration stuff right away and like how it does integrate with GP? Is it like eConnect adapters or how does it do that?
Yeah, Sabrina, feel free to answer that if you want, otherwise I can take it.
Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, so we give a number of ways to integrate. We do have a pre-built connector that works with APIs to send that data back and forth to ERP Concur and vice versa. But in some cases, some people don't even need it. They're just going to do expense and they're going to reimburse their expense reports once a week or once a month. They may not even want that connector. They may just say, I just want a flat file export and import. And we can create that flat file to configure exactly to the import requirements of GP for you. So just depends on how integrated you want it, how real time you want it. But anything from a flat file to a scheduled FTP to more real time API connection, we can do for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
So this is Carolyn, and I work with licensing. And Corey, you can probably work with me afterwards or whatever. But when you say API connection, Joel, does that mean we don't need to have like an integration type of tool on the GP side?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the goal is obviously to get rid of all that manual entry. So everything that you're putting in Concur, when you send it over, it just shows up in GP, and there's no extra tools you need to run or anything to get that data through.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know, I can't remember the name. I think it was Corey. You said you joined late. We did record the call, so hopefully we can send that out to everybody, and that way if you missed part of it or had to drop or join late, you can catch more of it.
Yep, I'll definitely send out the recording afterwards.
Awesome. Most of the folks on the phone, are you guys, I know you're in Fargo, but is everybody in the North Dakota, Minnesota area, or are we all over the country?
Some are in Iowa, besides North Dakota, Minnesota. Who else, Sabrina? What other states do we have on here? We have customers all over the country, though, and I know that this will be available for them to see it. So we've got some down in Florida and Colorado and just all areas. So they'll be seeing it from the different. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here in Minnesota. Always available for any questions you guys have. I'll send out all my contact info to you as well, Sabrina. I don't know if you have that yet or not, or if Drew sent it to you, but I'll send out my contact info. If anybody needs anything, there are any follow-up questions, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me. Let me know. I'm happy to help. And again, I really appreciate you guys giving us the time. I hope you guys see the value in this, and look forward to earning your business in the future.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, have a great day, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.